My name is Meryl Johansen. I'm 86 years old, and I used to believe that love, real love, could withstand anything. Distance, disappointment, even silence. I was wrong. If you drive down Maple Ridge Lane, about 3 miles out from the heart of Ellensburg, Washington, you'll find a modest ranch-style house with chipped blue shutters, overgrown rose bushes, and a dented mailbox that leans a little to the right. That's mine. The paint's peeling. The porch swings when the wind's moody. But it's home. Been that way for 51 years. It's also where I sat every morning at 8:15, with my coffee growing cold in one hand and my cell phone in the other, pressing the same name. Will. My son. The same boy I used to rock to sleep with gospel lullabies and honey in my voice. The boy who used to sneak into my bed during thunderstorms, wrap his little arms around my waist, and say I made him feel safe. I called him every single day for a year. No answer. Not once. Not even a text back. I left voicemails that started with hope and ended in tears. Some days I tried jokes. Other days I just said, "Hey, it's Mom. I miss you." The silence was louder than any rejection I'd ever known. It started right after I had my fall in the grocery store parking lot. February 12th. I remember because I was buying eggs for his birthday cake. I'd planned to surprise him. A lemon cake, his favorite. I slipped on black ice before I even made it to the doors. Broke my wrist. Bruised a rib. A stranger called 911. But I called my son. He didn't answer. I was in the ER that night, all alone, bleeding dignity more than anything else. They kept asking, "Is there someone we can call for you?" I gave them his number. They tried twice. Nothing. After that, something in me started to erode. And still I kept calling. Day after day. For birthdays, for anniversaries, for Easter, for nothing at all. I told myself he was busy. Work. Life. Maybe his phone broke. Maybe he was going through something. But 365 days passed, and all I got in return was that empty mechanical voicemail. "You've reached Lyle. Leave a message." Until last week. It was 6:42 p.m. I was watching reruns of Bonanza, still wearing my gardening gloves from earlier when my phone rang. Not a spam call. Not a pharmacy refill. Will. My son. For a second, my breath caught in my chest like it did when I saw him in his little tuxedo at prom. I scrambled for the phone, my hands trembling so hard I nearly dropped it. But I didn't answer. Not yet. I stared at the screen. And then I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I let it ring. I watched every second tick by, every vibration in my palm like a hammer to my ribs. And when it went to voicemail, I didn't call back. He tried again the next day. And the next. He even left a message. "Hey Mom. Look, I know it's been a while. I could really use a favor. We're in a bit of a jam. Could you call me back when you get this? Please. Favor." After all the silence, all the missed birthdays, all the hospital visits spent alone with a steady beep of a heart monitor for company. He wanted a favor. He needed me. But I remembered the cold white walls of the ER. The way the nurse patted my shoulder like I was a stray with no collar. I remembered staring at my phone screen, begging it to light up with his name, begging to not feel so invisible. So I answered him the only way he taught me. With silence. But don't get me wrong, I didn't stop loving him. A mother's heart doesn't come with an off switch. Just learns how to hurt quietly. And that quiet. That's where this story begins. Because what Lyle didn't know was that I kept every voicemail I ever left him. Every message. Every memory. Every heartbreak. I turned silence into a record. Into proof. Into power. And when I finally answered, it wouldn't be with words. It would be with something else entirely. Something he'd never see coming. Before I tell you what happened after the call, I need to take you back to the moment everything started to crumble. It was the morning of February 12th, just 3 days before Lyle's 46th birthday. The sky over Ellensburg was ashen, the kind of winter gray that makes even your memories feel tired. I was in the kitchen by 7, wearing my sunflower apron and humming a hymn as I sifted flour into an old yellow mixing bowl. Lemon zest, real butter. The same recipe I'd used since he was 8 years old. Back when birthdays meant banners, balloons, and me clapping wildly in the background while he blew out candles shaped like dinosaurs or race cars. He used to beg for 2 slices before dinner and rub his stomach like he'd eaten gold. Back then, my love was all he needed. I was halfway through folding the batter when I realized I was out of eggs. I grabbed my coat and set out for the Safeway down the street. I didn't think to check the weather. Didn't even change out of my house shoes. Just a quick errand, I thought. In and out. But the parking lot hadn't been salted. I stepped out of the car and felt my foot slip before I could blink. The world spun. My hips slammed into the asphalt. My arm twisted beneath me. I remember the taste of copper and gravel. And pain. Hot, screaming pain that made everything go black around the edges. I was too stunned to cry. Too hurt to crawl. I remember people walking by, glancing down, pretending not to see. A kind teenage cashier finally ran over and called 911. In the ambulance, I asked the EMT to dial my son. Tell him it's an emergency. Tell him it's Mom. They tried. No answer. At the ER, they cut away my sleeve and braced my wrist. The doctor muttered something about my age and bone density. A nurse asked if I lived alone. I said yes, but not forever. My son usually visits. Or used to. They offered to call someone else. I told them not to bother. Because in that moment, lying on a cold gurney, smelling iodine and my own fear, I understood something I'd been denying for years. I was alone. They kept me overnight for observation. I watched the clock change digits like they were bricks building a wall between me and the life I thought I still had. The next morning I was discharged with a prescription for pain meds and a long list of what not to do. I drove myself home with one hand on the wheel, a wrist brace biting into my skin, and my heart lodged somewhere between fury and disbelief. That night I called Lyle again. Voicemail. I tried to tell myself he must have been busy. Maybe he was out of the country. Maybe he lost his phone. But as days turned into weeks and not a single return call came, I stopped making excuses and started taking notes. Literally. I opened a little red notebook and labeled the first page. Calls to Lyle. Every day I logged the time and message. I recorded what I said, how I felt, whether I cried afterward. February 12 to 9:18 p.m. Lyle, it's Mom. Fell. I'm in the hospital. Please call me. February 15 to 4:27 p.m. Just wanted to let you know I'm home. Wrists broken. I'm alright though. I made your cake. It's in the freezer. February 18 to 10:01 a.m. Your birthday passed. Thought you'd call. I miss you, sweetheart. By the time spring rolled around, my calls turned into little rituals. I'd brew tea, sit by the window, press his name and wait. Every silence became a scar. Every unanswered ring a confirmation. He wasn't coming. I stopped baking. Stopped putting lemon zest on the grocery list. Even the smell of citrus made me sick. My neighbors, Mildred and Clark, started to notice. They'd knock sometimes, drop off meals or ask me to join them at the community center for bingo night. But I always declined. Not out of pride. Out of grief. You see, losing someone who dies is hard. But losing someone who's still alive, someone who just chooses not to love you anymore, That kind of grief has no funeral. Only silence. And then, just when I thought I had buried all the pieces of the mother I used to be, the phone rang. Will. He finally called. But not to say sorry. Not to ask how I was or where I'd been or if I was even still alive. He wanted something. He needed a favor. Said he was in a bit of a jam. Didn't explain. Didn't apologize. Didn't even ask how I'd been. Just expected me to leap, the way I always had whenever he so much as sniffled as a child. But this time I didn't leap. I let it ring. I stared at his name and remembered every voicemail, every birthday, every lonely night eating boxed soup because my wrist wouldn't let me open jars. And I did nothing, except press one button on my phone. Say voicemail. Because I knew this was just the beginning. I knew there'd be more. And I had decided something that both terrified and thrilled me. This time I was going to answer on my own terms. This time he would know what silence really feels like. But before I could decide what to do next, the next voicemail came in. And what he said nearly knocked the air out of my chest. Mom, please. It's about Henry. We don't know what else to do. Call me back. Henry. My grandson. The only person who'd ever picked up my calls. And suddenly, my silence wasn't so simple anymore. If you felt that, hit the like button, drop a comment below, and make sure you're subscribed. I listened to that voicemail a dozen times. Mom, please. It's about Henry. We don't know what else to do. Call me back. That name, Henry, landed like a stone in the quiet pond of my heart, rippling through every wall I'd tried to build. Henry wasn't just Lyle's son. He was mine too, in the only way a grandmother could love a child. He was the one who used to come visit on Saturdays, even when Lyle had better things to do. He was the boy who helped me plant tulips every April and cried when one of them snapped under his sneaker. He was the one who, at age 10, asked me why his dad never smiled when I called. I never had an answer. Just a long hug and a quiet. People forget their mothers sometimes. Doesn't mean we stop loving them. The last time I saw Henry was 2 years ago. He was 17. Taller than me. All legs and elbows. He stopped by the house with a bag of groceries and said it was his idea. Not Lyle's. Not his mother's. He stayed for hours helping me clean the shed, dust the china hutch, eat overcooked pot roast. And when he left that evening, he turned back from the porch steps and said, "You're the only adult I know who actually listens when I talk." Then he was gone. After that I called. I left voicemails for Henry too. Even sent letters. Birthday cards. Graduation money. No replies. Blamed Lyle. But I didn't know what kind of hold he had over that boy, or what had gone so wrong in their house that made even Henry go silent. Till now. I didn't return Lyle's call that night. Couldn't. I didn't trust myself not to yell or cry or crumble. Instead I played the message again. And again. Listening for something between the words. Fear. Not guilt. Real fear. I sat up all night staring at the phone. Watching it, waiting for another call. Another detail. Something more. It came at 6:03 a.m. This time it was Lyle's wife, Brenna. A voice I hadn't heard since Henry was in kindergarten. She sounded tight. Controlled. Like someone talking through gritted teeth. "Meryl, I know this is awkward, but please call us. Henry's in trouble. He's not well. And we can't handle this without you." That was it. No details. No please. No sorry. Just need. I made coffee, burned the toast, and sat by the window like I used to when I waited for Lyle to come home late from football practice. And I wrestled with the one thing no mother ever wants to admit. Did I love Henry enough to break my silence? Did I still owe Lyle anything after everything? But this wasn't about Lyle. This was about Henry. That sweet boy who used to doodle cartoons of us gardening. The one who once asked me how many stars fit in heaven and if I thought Grandpa could see them. So I picked up the phone. Dialed. Not Lyle. Henry. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. But on the third call someone answered. Hello. It wasn't Henry. It was a voice I didn't recognize. Young, sharp, nervous. Who is this? Asked. Was. Then. He saved your number in case anything ever happened. Said if he couldn't reach you, I should try. My heart stopped. What happened? Henry's been missing for 2 days. I nearly dropped the phone. Missing? I whispered. What do you mean missing? The voice on the other end shifted. Look, I probably wasn't supposed to answer. But he talked about you. Blah. Said his family didn't really see him, but you always did. I pressed the phone harder to my ear, desperate. Who are you? Just a friend, the boy said. But if you want to find Henry, don't trust what his parents are telling you. They're not looking in the right places. Blick. He hung up. Just like that. And I sat there frozen, gripping the phone, my tea gone cold, my head spinning. Henry was missing. And some stranger was calling me for help. Me. The woman they all forgot. The one they ignored. Pushed aside. Now I was the only one who might know where to start. I opened the red notebook again, flipped past the pages of voicemails and heartache, and turned to a fresh page. I wrote 2 words. Find Henry. And underneath that, tell no one. Because something about that call made my skin crawl. I didn't know what was really going on in Lyle's house, but if Henry didn't trust his own parents to come find him, then I sure as hell wasn't going to trust them either. So I went to the back closet, pulled down an old photo box and started digging. Letters, school drawings, birthday cards. One by one, I pieced together the breadcrumbs of a relationship I thought was lost. Until I found it. Postcard. From a summer camp 2 years ago. No return address. But a small hand-drawn map on the back. A joke between us, Henry had said. In case I ever get lost. And suddenly I knew exactly where to start looking. Not with Lyle. Not with the police. With that map. Because somewhere along that trail was a boy who felt unseen. And he had called out for me in the only way he knew how. Through silence. And I would answer him. Loud and clear. This story's heating up. If you're hooked, hit that like button, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. I hadn't been to that part of the state in decades. The map Henry drew on the back of that old summer camp postcard wasn't precise. Just scribbles of trees, a crooked stream, and a red X. A child's imagination, most would say. But I knew better. Henry was the kind of boy who wrapped his truths in riddles. Always had been. And when he'd handed me that postcard 2 summers ago, he'd grinned like he was giving me something more than a joke. In case I ever get lost, he'd whispered, slipping it under my teacup like a spy passing state secrets. Now 2 years later I was clutching it like it might bleed answers. Packed light. A flashlight, bottled water, a change of clothes, my cane, and an old windbreaker that used to be Samuel's. I left a note on the kitchen table in case something went wrong. Not for Lyle. For Mildred next door. She watered my flowers when I forgot and knew how to read between the lines. The last thing I took was the little red notebook. I tucked it into my purse like a compass. Not to guide me north, but to remind me why I was going at all. I drove the first 100 miles in silence. No radio. No humming. Just the sound of the tires chewing through memory. Each passing mile brought back images. Henry at 7 holding my hand across a crosswalk. Henry at 12 crying in my arms because Lyle had cancelled a fishing trip last minute. Henry at 16 whispering, "I wish I lived here," as we watched fireflies through the screen door. But it was what I hadn't seen that haunted me most. His last birthday. His high school graduation. The moment he must have decided I wasn't reachable anymore. 'Cause I stopped calling. Because I'd gone quiet. Just like Lyle had done to me. And now, here I was, 86 years old, with a bad knee and a stubborn heart, driving into the thick of God knows what because I believed in a postcard more than I trusted my own son. The camp sat off Route 12, tucked behind a fence lined with rusted nails and forgotten dreams. The sign said it had closed 5 years ago, but I recognized the outline of the cabins through the trees. A creek still bubbled nearby, just like the map had shown. I parked and walked the perimeter first, letting instinct guide me. Something about the air felt wrong. Too still. Too silent. Like it was holding its breath. I found the cabin near the edge of the woods, the one with the slanted roof and blue paint peeling like sunburn. The red X Henry had drawn lined up almost perfectly with the spot. I hesitated before stepping inside. The door creaked like it had a secret to confess. Inside, dust blanketed every surface. A rotting mattress. Broken lamp. Cobwebs spun like warning tape. But something caught my eye. Backpack. It sat tucked beneath the window, half covered by an old tarp. Inside, a hoodie, a half-empty water bottle, a granola bar, and a matchbook. Not just any matchbook. One from Ricky's Roadhouse. A grimy diner 2 towns east. I remembered it. Lal used to take Brenna there after softball games in high school. They even held their engagement dinner in the back room. Why would Henry have this? I flipped it open. Inside, scribbled in Henry's shaky handwriting. "If you find this, I didn't leave. I was taken." My knees gave out, and I collapsed onto the dusty floor. Taken. The word echoed like a siren in my skull. I read it again and again, as if repetition could make it untrue. And then I did the only thing I could do. I took out my little red notebook and wrote down every detail. Cabin. The backpack. The matchbook. A note. And then I took pictures. Of everything. Because now it wasn't just a missing person. It was something darker. Something Lyle and Brenna hadn't told me. And I had no reason to believe they didn't know. I walked out of that cabin different than I walked in. Less afraid. More certain. If Henry had been taken, then someone had hidden it well. And I was starting to believe that someone wasn't a stranger. On the drive back toward town, I stopped at a gas station, bought a burner phone, and called a number I hadn't dialed in over a decade. Frankie McClure. My late husband Samuel's old friend from the sheriff's department. Retired now. Hard of hearing. But sharp as broken glass. "Frankie," I said when he picked up on the 4th ring. "I need a favor. Quiet and fast." He hesitated. Then, "Who's hurt?" I told him about the postcard. Cabin. The matchbook. I left out Lyle's involvement, just for now. Frankie didn't ask why I hadn't called the police. He knew. Because when it's your own blood that's lying to you, sometimes the law is the last place you can go. "Give me an hour," he said. "I'll meet you at the roadhouse." When I hung up, I sat in the car and stared at my wrinkled hands. The same ones that had bathed Lyle as a baby, signed his permission slips, folded his laundry. Hands that had once been strong enough to raise a family. Now they were shaking. But not from fear. From rage. Because if someone hurt my grandson, if someone hid the truth from me, then silence would no longer be my weapon. It would be theirs. Because I had just begun to speak. And I wasn't stopping until I found Henry. Alive or not. If this moment hit you hard, tap the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Frankie was already parked behind Ricky's roadhouse when I arrived. His old Chevy pickup sat under the flickering neon sign like a patient dog waiting for its owner. He stepped out wearing the same worn sheriff's jacket he'd retired in. His white hair tucked beneath a ball cap that said Vietnam Vet in faded gold thread. "God, Meryl," he said, shaking his head as I climbed out of the car. "You sure know how to drag an old man into the fire." I handed him the matchbook and the photo I'd taken of Henry's note. He read the words silently, then looked up at me. "You're saying this boy's been missing for how long?" 3 days, I said. "His parents didn't report it." Frankie frowned. "That's not right." "No," I whispered. "It's not." He motioned toward the diner. "We're not going to get much inside. But the cook's still the same. Ricky's cousin. He owes me a favor." We walked in through the back, past the kitchen that smelled like old grease and freezer burn. The cook came out, thick arms folded, eyes squinting with suspicion until he saw Frankie. After a short exchange, quiet words, a photo of Henry the First had in my wallet, and a few hard stares, the man pointed to the side lot and said, "He was here 3 nights ago. Looks scared. Got in a car with 2 guys. Never seen him again." "What kind of car?" Frankie asked. "Black SUV. Tinted windows. Local plates." My chest felt like it was caving in. Frankie and I stepped back outside. He lit a cigarette, something he hadn't done in years. "This doesn't smell right," he said, eyes narrowing. "You think your son's involved?" "I think he knows more than he's saying." Frankie nodded. "Want me to handle it?" I shook my head. "No. I do. When I got back to Ellensburg, I didn't go home. I drove straight to Lyle's house. It was bigger than I remembered. A 3-story suburban monument to success, with hedges clipped to perfection and a driveway full of polished cars. I parked at the curb and walked up to the door like I had a right to. "'Cause I did," Brenna answered. She looked tired, older, like life had been nipping at her edges. "Meryl," she blinked, startled. "What are you? Where's Lyle?" "He's inside, but..." I didn't wait. I walked past her, into their marble-floored foyer, and found him in the living room, hunched over his phone. When he saw me, he stood, the color draining from his face. "Mom!" "Don't," I snapped. "Don't call me that like it means something." He looked at Brenna, then back at me. "Did you get my messages?" "I got them," I said. "I also got a voicemail. From Henry." He froze. "What do you mean?" I reached into my purse and pulled out a tiny recorder. "Press play." Henry's voice came through the speaker, quiet but clear. "If you're hearing this, Grandma." Then they found out. "I told you I was fine, but I'm not. Dad found out about the money. The inheritance. He said I wasn't old enough to manage it, but I think he wanted it for himself. I overheard him and Brenna talking about getting me out of the picture for a while. Said I was acting crazy. That nobody would believe me if I left. If I disappear, please don't believe what they tell you. I'm not sick. I'm not unstable. I just needed someone to know the truth." I stopped the recording. Brenna covered her mouth. Lyle sank back into the couch like the wind had been knocked out of him. "You're lying," he muttered. "That's fake." "No," I said. "What's fake is the man who used to beg me to sew his Halloween costume, now hiding behind legal jargon and lies. You don't understand." "I understand plenty," I cut in. "I understand you left me in an emergency room without a word. I understand you ignored me for a year until you needed something. And now I understand why Henry trusted me more than his own father." Brenna started crying. I turned to her. "Where is he?" I don't know, she stammered. He ran away after the fight. We didn't think he'd actually do it. We were going to tell the police. Yes. Report him missing like you should have 3 days ago. They said nothing. I'm giving you 24 hours, I said. To come clean. To tell the police everything. If you don't, this recording goes to every paper in the county, every school board, every business partner you've ever had. Lyle stood. You wouldn't. Try me. I walked out without another word. The next day, the news hit the local paper. Teen grandson of prominent tech executive found after anonymous tip. Henry was in a safe house, placed there by a friend after overhearing Lyle's threats. Scared, shaken, was safe. Frankie made sure the sheriff's office opened a full investigation. As for Lyle, he resigned from his firm 2 days later. Brenna filed for divorce within a week. I didn't rejoice. I didn't gloat. I simply opened my little red notebook and wrote 2 final entries. Day 366, he called. I let it ring. Day 367. I answered. But not the way he expected. Henry and I sit together now most weekends. We bake cakes again. Lemon his favorite. He's quiet, still healing. But there's a steadiness in him now that wasn't there before. One day he asked why I came for him. Because I saw you, I said. Even when no one else did. And why didn't you answer his call when he finally needed you, he asked. I looked at my hands. The same reason he didn't answer mine. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Henry will grow up and forget to call sometimes. Maybe he'll get busy, distracted. But I have hope. Because the boy who drew me a map when he was lost now knows that I followed it all the way to the truth. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more emotional and powerful stories just like this one. You never know who needs to hear it. See you in the next story.